The Secrets of Doctor Who is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous supporters. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/donate. You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, episode number 87.
For over 2,000 years. I am Scottish. I can complain about things. Shush.
Hi, I'm Don Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series Doctor Who, both old and new. See the rhyme there I did there, guys? Yes, I added a little...
You're a poet, but don't know it.
And I really am not.
You do know it.
I know I'm not. Today we're discussing the 10th Doctor Christmas special, Runaway Bride. Joining me today on the panel are Father Cory Sticha. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going?
And Jimmy Akin. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
So we're up to the end of the second season of the new revival of Doctor Who, New Who as we call it. The 10th Doctor, we've just had our first companion departure of New Who.
Yeah.
And the Doctor is alone. But it's what we've got here is we've got a carryover from the end of the previous episode. And at the end of that, just as we had that huge emotional moment where the Doctor burned up a sun in order to say goodbye to Rose and missed his chance to say, I love you.
Through his own fault.
Yes, because he's a dummy and just kept talking.
Just say it. Yeah.
Just say it. Anyway, I'm not bitter about that. So we end the episode as the Doctor turns and sees Catherine Tate, the actress, the famous comic actress, Catherine Tate, Donna Noble, standing there in a wedding gown, and he utters the immortal line, "What? What?"
Yeah.
And
I just want to do that anytime something happens I don't understand. I just want to say, "What? What? What?"
What? And then she does her best Catherine Tate, which is this sort of outraged harpy sort of thing. Where am I? Where the heck is this place? And then, into the demanding. And so, but that was how the previous episode ended. This one begins with, actually, Donna in church, with the wedding about to begin.
So we flash back.
Right. With someone who's presumably her father, who we never see again.
Right. He is her father, and we don't see him again because the actor died. And so that's why we got Wilfred Mott as her grandfather.
I get you. Okay. So I was wondering what the change was, whether they just decided that they preferred Wilfred Mott as opposed to this actor, but I didn't realize he had passed away. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So before we get into the episode itself, we'll talk a little bit about the behind the scenes of this. There was apparently this idea that they were going to kind of have these one-off, one-story companions on occasion. And they did this a few times in between companions.
Like Craig with the 11th Doctor.
Right. Kylie Minogue did one with the Titanic in Space Christmas episode, which I think is the next season, isn't it?
Yeah. Usually they did it with the Christmas specials. They'd have one-off companions there.
Right.
Kasdan Sardik would be another one. But they even did it a little bit in episodes of the main series, not just the specials.
Right. And then we had the weird non-season that we had at the end of David Tennant's time, which we get a series of specials. It's tangent. Really annoyed me when they did this. They did this twice in New Who, where at the end of 10 and the end of 11, we had these sort of specials that don't fit in. And when I was doing my watch, so I didn't watch these seasons, I came late to it. And so I was streaming them after the fact. And I went from the end of the whatever season it was, in season 4, I guess it was, and I went to the Christmas special, and it starts. I'm like, what? I was David Tennant again. I was like, wait, what happened? Did I miss something? And I had to go back and find it and figure out and go to Wikipedia and try to figure out what the order was. It was very confusing. I know we're not supposed. I mean, they're not making these with the thought, or they weren't making these with the thought that people would be watching them online years later, but it was very confusing. But so anyway.
The couple other behind the scenes things about this. So by casting Catherine Tate as Donna Noble, we have stunt casting,
right?
Which is when you hire someone who's already famous to be on your show and bring in ratings. And Doctor Who has done that, not always for ratings purposes, but it's done that for a long time. For example, in the Tom Baker Fourth Doctor story, City of Death, there is a famous appearance by John Cleese as an art critic or as a patron of an art gallery in Paris, and he's looking at the TARDIS as if it's an objet d'art and commenting on it. And then like the Doctor and Romana run into it and it dematerializes and he just like says, exquisite.
I can't wait to watch that one.
That's a great episode. That's a Douglas Adams episode, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's comic. It's comic genius. It really is. One of those just hilarious episodes. That's considered a great one.
Also, so Catherine Tate's as Dom mentioned, a famous comedic actress in Britain, and so she may have been unfamiliar to American audiences, but like she's a familiar face to the original British audience. Mm-hmm. Also, this on a writing level, this episode does something kind of nice because after every companion departure in New Who, there's a need to grieve for the departing companion. Mm-hmm. And that really wasn't explored as much, nowhere near as much in Old Who, but in New Who it is. And so there's if we, the audience, are going to be sad for a companion's departure, then the Doctor needs to reflect that. He needs to be sad too. And since Rose was a popular companion, the Doctor needs to be sad. And that gives rise to the question of how do you get him paired up with someone else? How long do you let the sadness go on? How complex is the process of bonding with a new companion? And so like when Amy and Rory left, it was a huge ordeal to get a new companion.
Right.
But here they go in completely the opposite direction. We've just had one of the saddest companion departures of all time, and we get a moment of the Doctor being really, really sad, and then wham, new companion is forced on him.
Right. Right. And it's like you said, it's stunt casting. It's intended to be a one-off, but yet by the end of this episode, as we'll see, he's proposing to her to travel with him, which she doesn't, of course. What's fascinating, right, at this time, because that's what's fascinating, was it's intended to be one time, but there's such great chemistry between Catherine Tate and David Tennant that they bring her back. They never thought they could get her to be a regular on the show. But
that's where I wonder. That's where I wonder who approached who. Was it the writers of Doctor Who saying, this was a great episode, you guys work well together, do you want to come? Or did she say, I want to do this more, this was fun?
Right. I mean,
or is it kind of a combination of both?
Perhaps when they decided that Martha Jones wasn't going to continue, and we need to get into that at a later point, is why Martha's only lasted a season, that sort of thing. But at that time, did they go back to Catherine Tate and said, "Hey, that worked out so well. Could you give us a season?" This is really good, and plus, it's different. It's not. It's not really romantic. I mean,
there may be a hint at the end, but really, this is going in a very different direction than Rose. Rose was a young woman. She was emotionally dependent on the Doctor, and she was romantically interested in him and vice versa. Here, Catherine Tate is a mature woman. She's very strong.
Yep.
She's, in fact, angry at the Doctor a lot of the time. And she is definitely not romantically interested in him, especially at the beginning. She's romantically interested in her fiancé, and she wants to get back to the wedding.
Right, exactly. I find that refreshing. It's a nice change, because what happens is we go into Martha Jones and for the next season, and she's sort of Rose part 2 in eventually, and I think that was a mistake. And I think maybe the Russell T Davies and the other producers realized that by the end of that that third season was what is. I mean, there were some good episodes in there, but it was sort of a retread, essentially, as far as companion goes.
Only less satisfying because although Martha was interested in the doctor was not interested in Martha. He was still mourning Rose.
Yes, because that would have been creepy to have him sort of immediately rebound onto Martha, and that created that problem. So I really enjoyed. I enjoyed, Catherine Tate in this. I always love her. She's one of my favorite companions because she's so it's just so refreshing to be different, and she kind of evokes a little bit of how eventually River's song will kind of treat the doctor in the sense of I'm not all that impressed by you. You know what I mean? Right. Like that whole she kind of puts him in his place a little bit sometimes.
Donna Noble's interesting because she was very clueless. They kept calling her thick. She's dense. Yeah. But she figures the doctor out very quickly, and she gets his number very quickly. She knows where he's coming from, and she knows who he is. And there's that last scene where she says, you need to find someone. He says, I don't know. It's like, 'cause you can't be traveling alone. You need to find someone.
He's not good to travel for him to travel alone.
You.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And we'll get into that a little bit. In fact, the chemistry is so good between Catherine Tate and David Tennant that they're actually, I don't know if you know this, they're actually going to be in a new TV series together that's being created right now by Bad Wolf Productions, which is some of the producers from this era of Doctor Who, and it's going to be, let's see. It's called Americans, not The Americans. That's a Fox FX series that's just ended. It's called Americans. It's a scripted comedy drama being written by Catherine Tate, which follows a pair of British people British couple who moved to the United States.
Oh.
I mean, classic fish out of water. I'm expecting good things from this because they're so good together. So that's something to look forward to. Called Americans. It's going to be on Sky, I guess. So all right. So
a couple notes about the beginning of this show.
Yes.
So in the flashback, to the wedding, we see Donna being escorted down the aisle, and then she's teleported up into the TARDIS, and we don't know why. Right. She doesn't know why. The doctor doesn't know why. And we then review the scene that we watched at the end of the previous episode, now that we know how she got to the TARDIS. And in that scene, David Tennant keeps saying things are impossible.
Right.
And it's like, I'm really tired of hearing David Tennant say things are impossible when they've just happened. You can do that once casually, but it gets old really fast. On the other hand, I really like Donna demanding to know of David Tennant, how many women have you abducted? and the answer is some. Yes. because he originally abducted Ian and Barbara.
Right, exactly. And she finds I mean, the fact is the doctor has taken many women as well as some men traveling with him. He's taken them away, and sometimes it's been a bit chaotic in the departure, shall we say?
Yeah, and sometimes it's been actual abduction, although not for sexual purposes.
Right. And it's in fact in this scene she discovers Rose's jacket that she's left behind and confronts the doctor with it, and he doesn't tell her exactly what happened to Rose. He just says, I lost her. And it's sort of
it's open to the idea she's dead,
right? But
that it later becomes important that she's not dead, and the doctor tells Donna that as a way of gaining her trust.
Right. He doesn't tell her that here. He sort of leaves with the impression that she's dead, and so we have this funny moment that then turns very serious very quickly. So I found it another interesting aspect of this is a phenomenon that seems to crop up very often in the Doctor's Britain, which is fantastic, unexplainable things happen, and people just can't believe that it is. That's impossible, sort of the same sort of thing. But so Donna disappears in a flash of light from walking down the aisle at her wedding, and everybody thinks she's pulled off some kind of trick. Like,
yeah, it's typical of her. Look at me, make me the center of attention thing.
Exactly.
Right. Like, which is funny because she's the bride. She's already the center of attention.
Yeah.
So
I like that Scully-like debunking of the paranormal, though. I mean, that's and there would be a tendency to do that in real life, to say, oh, this had to be some kind of trick or something.
Yes. Yeah. Like, how could this possibly happen? There can't be. My eyes have deceived me. Sort of denial of the reality. I also, so we have her mom who we will see to the end, and we have another mom who's sort of a bit of a battle axe, who's sort of a bit of a testy figure here. This seems to be Russell Davies' MO here with parents, and we have also the introduction of another minor character, sort of a background character, who we will see all the way through to the end of Donna Noble's time with the Doctor, right to the end of David Tennant's period as the Doctor, which is Nerys, or Nerys, I think. I always say it in the Star Trek Deep Space Nine way.
Yeah,
Nerys.
It's Nerys, but I always want to say it Nerys too.
Yeah. But so Nerys is sort of Donna's rival of some sort. So her who's sort of frenemy, I guess they must be, who is younger, better looking, and sort of her rival for affections or success or whatever. And in fact, we see her at Donna's wedding at the end of her time with the Doctor. So we have this bookend of Donna from the beginning to the end of Donna's quest to get married. It's sort of this idea. She needs to get married. She's older. She needs to, find a husband, and eventually she does at the end of her time here with the Doctor. And so, but Nerys is sort of a through line with that. I just thought that was funny that they kept that character there, who apparently, I don't even remember if she ever has a line. I think
she has a few lines, but she, like, we see her, for example, dancing with Donna's fiance at the wedding reception they've held without Donna there.
Right. Right. So, So she disappears, and then they come back and they go through all these situations for her to get back to the wedding, because the TARDIS is ailing for some reason. The Doctor hasn't figured it out yet. And they land somewhere in London and need to get back to Chiswick, where the wedding is supposed to be. And
but the Doctor doesn't have any money, and so to exploit Catherine Tate's comedic skills, we get a comedy action sequence that gets them back to the church.
Right.
By the way, one thing I wanted to comment on, normally when we have a companion, one of the first things that happens is the companion goes into the TARDIS and sees how it's bigger on the inside and is amazed at that.
Right.
Well, here they subvert that, because Donna has been teleported into the TARDIS. She has never seen its outside.
Right.
And so when she emerges from the TARDIS and realizes it's smaller on the outside, we get kind of the inversion of that as she's walking around it agog, looking at how small it is.
Did we have someone doing that in the most recent season as well with the 12th Doctor?
Well, we had two variations on it later. In the special where we meet the 19th century version of Clara Oswald, she goes into it and sees it's bigger on the inside, then runs outside, runs around it, and comes back in and says it's smaller on the outside.
Right.
Which is a nice inversion. Then Bill assumes, in the beginning of the Peter Capaldi series, assumes that the TARDIS is some kind of elevator or lift that can, and that's why you can come out of it in a different location than you went into it.
Wow. And then you have the great scene in the last Christmas special with the first Doctor, where Peter Capaldi says, "I finally get to do this."
Oh yeah,
pass it up. Wow, it's bigger on the inside. This completely changes my view of the universe.
Yeah, that was pretty great. That was a good one. So
another subversion of the standard trope actually occurred earlier in Tom Baker's era, when Sergeant Benton gets to go into the TARDIS for the first time and does not comment on the fact, or actually this may be in the Three Doctors earlier than Tom Baker. He goes in and doesn't comment, and someone says, "Aren't you going to comment on how it's bigger?" And he's like, "Well, that's obvious."
The very grounded Sergeant Benton. So we have so they're in this shopping district, the Doctor and Donna, and they're trying to hail a cab, and no cab will stop for the crazy woman in the wedding dress. Apparently, I don't know why, but apparently they think she's drunk and drinking.
That. They think she's drunk, or they think she's in drag, or stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a couple of those. So she starts begging people to borrow $10 or to borrow a phone, and then they find a payphone because this is 2006, it's filmed in 2006, set in Christmas 2007. So there's still payphones apparently. And the doctor uses the sonic screwdriver to get her free phone calls. But of course, everyone on the other end, their phone is dead. So the doctor goes to an ATM. I like this. So at first he just takes out a bit of money. I think he's stealing it. We just have to be honest.
He's stealing it.
Yeah, but later on he ends up
stealing it from a bank, so it doesn't count. He's only a bank robber.
Exactly. I think the doctor has robbed more banks and will rob other banks as well. But then we see the robots from the previous Christmas special. The Robo Santas.
Killer Santa robots. And this is where it starts to go off the rails for me.
Yep. Same here.
Yeah.
The killer Christmas, and later we're going to have killer Christmas trees and Christmas ornaments, and I just don't like this.
Hey, it worked so well the first time. Let's do it again, huh?
Right.
The Christmas imagery is okay as background kind of set dressing, but when you try to make it part of the plot, it really weakens it for me. Yeah,
it's I don't understand what the decision was to kind of reuse this. Was it we had the costumes sitting in the costume department, and hey, let's just pull them out again? I mean, we just saw the same killer Santas in the previous Christmas special. It's a weird idea.
This is one of these things that, unfortunately, sometimes writers get their pet ideas that they just love. They just got to have these ideas. And I get the feeling this is one of them where, this worked so great last time. Mind you, no one actually liked it except the writers. But hey, this worked great last time. Let's do it again.
I think they may have changed the masks of the Santas. I think they were more standardized this time. Mm-hmm. I may be wrong about that, but I thought the masks actually looked a little better, but I still, I didn't like the concept.
They look quite as plasticky as they did the first
year.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they're apparently the same creatures, the roboform, pilot fish sort of things, but they've been the Rachnos is taking control of them, is remote controlling them, as opposed to what we had last time.
Yeah.
But apparently they come out at Christmas. That's their
thing. And by the way, to stop them, we mentioned the doctor robbing from the bank. Well, he robs the bank even more to create a cash storm that people will pick up, so that people zoom in to grab all the cash that's spewing out of the machine as a way, and he does this to protect himself from the killer Santas. So he's putting other people in the line of fire of these killer Santas.
Human shields.
He's human. It's like, man, okay, this is a comedy action sequence, but this is kind of crossing the line here.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, as the kids would say, he makes it rain, with the money flying through the air.
Yeah.
So Donna gets into the cab that's being driven by one of the Robo Santas, and the doctor gets into the TARDIS and flies it after her. And apparently he's not used to flying the TARDIS through air as opposed to just transporting it here, dematerializing it here and there. And so we have this another comedy action sequence of him flying the TARDIS up next to the cab and
crashing into things and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's actually very dramatic. I like this.
Yeah.
And we also have a car with kids that are watching it, and we never hear the kids, but we see their reactions. And when at one point, the doctor is trying to rescue Donna by having her leap from the cab into the TARDIS. And we see the kids are all wrapped up in it, and we see their mouths going, jump, jump, jump. And then when she finally does and is safe aboard the TARDIS, the kids are like waving their arms and cheering, and it's nice.
Well,
that was pretty clever.
It's an effective storytelling technique because the kids are the audience surrogate in this situation, but
watching
also
through a screen.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
But and also many of us remember as children riding in the back of cars, especially those of us of a certain age. I don't think kids get to do this anymore, but sort of riding in the back of a car, looking out the back window at the traffic behind us, and sort of creating stories about or seeing things that our parents never see, and seeing truck drivers and doing the arm pump to get them to toot the horn and that sort of stuff. I mean, I remember doing that. Again, I don't think kids get to do that anymore. They're all buckled up in seats. But it was a very effective technique. So I
used to ride in the back of pickup trucks.
Same here.
You really can't do that now.
I've done that too.
It depends on where you're at. Let's just put it.
Well, you can in California. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Yes.
I still see people. You don't see as much of it as you used to, but you still see people here. At least around town, you'll see people in Montana definitely still doing that.
Yeah.
Actually, the last time I was at the family ranch in Texas, my grandmother was driving us around, and I was to do some work on the farm, and I was in the back of the pickup with the gate down, out on the road. Yeah.
Yep.
So
I guess that happens. That was as an adult. So.
Yes. So they missed the wedding. It's too late now. The TARDIS has.
By the way, one note on the Santa robot driving the cab.
Yep.
So at some point, when Donna first gets in the cab, she thinks it's a guy in a Santa suit for the holidays. And then at some point, as she's interacting with him, the hood comes off of the robot, and she can see that it's wearing a mask.
Right.
And she leaps to the correct but inexplicable conclusion that it's a robot, when I would look at it and say it's a cosplayer.
That's right.
It's just a human in a suit, which is what it in fact really is in real life. But on the narrative level, it's a robot. And how does she know that?
That's true. That's a good point. She makes that leap, and she also makes that other leap, as we were talking about the literal leap. That in that moment where you referred to is. He said to trust, when he wants her to jump, he says, trust me. And she says, is that what you said to her, your friend, referencing Rose, the one you lost? Did she trust you? I mean, that's ouch moment for there.
Yep.
And the Dark says, yes, she did. And she's not dead. She's so alive. Now jump. In other words, he's kind of making the point like, yes, she had to trust me. But she's alive. She didn't die from it. Yeah. If Donna knew the whole story, she might be less willing to jump even at this point.
Yep.
But she does jump. They make it in. But they've missed the wedding. The TARDIS is now, something has gone wrong inside, and we have the next scene. They're on the top of a building's roof, and the Dark is shooting a fire extinguisher inside, and they have this moment where she's sad about missing the wedding, and
she's sitting down in her wedding dress on the roof of a building. It's like, that's going to get dirty and stained and torn.
Well, I think at this point she realizes this wedding dress is a lost cause. And
she's planning on getting married in June.
Right. Well, he says you can book another date. And he says, you still get the honeymoon. And she says, now it's just a holiday. Now it's not a honeymoon, it's a vacation, and that sort of thing. But then she has the line, I wish she had a time machine. Then we could go back and get it right.
Yeah.
With the TARDIS in frame behind them.
Yep.
But he doesn't tell her, I got one right there. He says, well, even if I did, I can't go back on someone's personal timeline. Apparently, he says to himself. But there's these great deprecating moments, not self-deprecating moments, but then when the Doctor, like in this gentlemanly fashion, takes off his coat and puts it around Donna's shoulders, she's like,
misogynist.
Yeah, yes, but she says, "God, you're skinny. This wouldn't fit a rat."
Yeah.
I'm just like he does such a nice moment, and she's so ungrateful for it. It's just so funny, and so this is where we start to get this. Start to unravel the plot, like what's going. We find out that she met her fiance Lance while temping at a company called H.C. Clements.
He made her coffee.
And he made her coffee, and so
every day.
Yes, that's an important point for later. Every day, and she took that as a romantic gesture, and ends up. She claims that he badgered her into marrying him, and then of course
through flashbacks we see it's the other way around.
She's literally chasing him downstairs, nagging him to marry her, and wearing him down. And then we find out that H.C. Clements is a security company that makes keys. Oh, keys.
And is owned by Torchwood,
right?
The leadership of whom has all vanished as of the Battle of Canary Wharf.
Yep. Right. Has the Torchwood series begun at this point?
No.
Okay. All right. So that's fine. Okay. So that doesn't enter into this. Then we get to the reception where they show up and everybody's having a blast. Dancing to what song that we will always hear in several Christmas specials? Slade's "Merry Christmas, Everybody." I've pointed this out several times before. Doctor Who apparently has this affinity for this particular modern pop song for Christmas. So we get that, and everybody's having a good time without her. And if I were her, I'd be justifiably upset too. Long story short.
The Santa robots start to show up. They have a device that allows them to manipulate the balls on the Christmas tree that causes them to float and then start missing people, but nonetheless slamming into things and exploding.
Yeah.
Right.
So another killer Christmas tree. Thank you, Russell T. Davies.
Right.
Exactly.
A couple of things that happen in this, even before the Christmas trees a little bit, but the doctor borrows someone's flip phone and he uses WAP. Remember WAP, Web Access Protocol, on old flip phones to access web pages using that tiny screen and the 10 key. Oh my gosh, that was painful just to watch it again. But he does the research on H.C. Clements. But then we see this weird scene, and I don't know if you guys thought this was weird. I thought this was this odd moment where the doctor he sees a blonde woman dancing on the dance floor with some guy, and he has this maudlin flashback to it wasn't Dancing with the Rose, but kind of, what was it? The flashback to a previous episode, and with Rose, and I'm like, do we really need a maudlin doctor? I mean, we know he's sad. We know he's missing Rose, but it just seemed, I don't know, out of place.
Well, it's a judgment call on the writing level because of how much do you show of his internal thoughts in that regard. Because if you show too little, the fans will complain that you've subverted the sadness of the ending. If you show too much, they'll complain you're dwelling on it overly much.
Okay.
And so it's kind of a judgment call. And I can understand, as someone who's lost a spouse because my wife died, going to weddings has a little, has kind of a different effect on me than it does other people.
Okay. I can see that. All right. I see. I mean, it has a bit of verisimilitude, which is that someone, this loss was less than 24 hours ago by his timeline. So yeah, it would still be very fresh. And by the way, during this, we have this song, which is apparently a song that was custom made for this episode, that song that they're dancing to. And the lyric is, "You took me in, you stole my heart, I cannot roam no more, 'cause love, it stays within you, it doesn't wash up on a shore. Then a fighting man forgets each cut, each knock, each bruise, each fall, but a fighting man cannot forget." So sort of a little bit on the nose there with the lyrics. We get the Roboform Santas show up. We find out the doctor discovers that the glowing within Donna is not just the glow of a bride, but the Huon energy that he says, which is once again
is impossible.
Impossible, right? Because it hasn't existed for billions of years.
Not since the Dark Times,
right?
Which we've heard of before. As early as Classic Who, we learned that there were, in the early period of the universe, there were the Dark Times where various monsters lived, including vampires and things like that.
Right, and the Rachnos, apparently.
And the Rachnos now.
And as he discovers, he had given her Donna this ring that was a biodamper to prevent
to keep the Santas from tracking her.
Right, and then he realizes that the Huon energy is so old that the biodamper doesn't work on it. I guess it's not backwards compatible. It's sort of the Windows XP of things or something. I don't know whether you want to say that or not, but it's probably not accurate. So they escape from the exploding Christmas ornaments and whatnot. And the doctor...
At least they had the killer Christmas tree work differently this time. It didn't spin around and slash people with its blades.
Yes, yes. And the doctor defeats them by going to the DJ table and taunts them by saying, if you're going to fight a man with a sonic screwdriver, don't leave him standing by the sound system or something. And he uses the speakers to blast them.
And for once, the sonicness of the sonic screwdriver actually means something.
Right. Last week we talked about the sonic screwdriver actually working as a screwdriver. This time we actually have it working as a sonic thing.
Device.
Yeah.
Yes. So the doctor kind of traces the signal, the remote control, which is I think an Xbox controller. I don't know if my my video game
I was
knowledge.
trying to figure out if that was an Xbox or was that like an N64.
Oh, maybe it was the N64.
It looked like a Nintendo 64 adjusted. You know?
Yes.
Both of y'all have better Game Boy mojo than I do. So
right. Well, that's about the limit of my video game console knowledge. So he traces it to space, and we find this. The spider at the center of this web of plot, which is literally a spider at the center of a web, a spaceship shaped like a star.
A Christmas star. Get it?
Yes. At one point, I have to say, at one point here, Donna makes a reference to, she thinks it might be dinosaurs under the earth, which is kind of funny because that's the Silurians, the dinosaurs under the earth. Let's skip ahead. They grab Lance. They go to the H.C. Clements. They go underneath the building to a sub basement that's not on the plans, of course, and they discover this facility. That's using, it's a sort of a lab that's using the water of the Thames to create Huon particles somehow. And that Donna has been dosed with them, and she's being used as a catalyzer for the particles.
And consequently, that's why she appeared in the TARDIS, because it also uses Huon particles for some internal function, and she was effectively magnetized to it by them.
Right, because of the stress and hormones of the wedding day. He says, that was the unexpected result of that.
Also, we meet the awful spider monster, the Queen Empress of the Rachnos.
Yes,
and I like the fact that she's got more. Really, the body form isn't that bad of this monster, it's kind of like a centaur spider. It's like the top half of a human and the bottom half of a giant spider.
Yeah, and
it's all red and icky looking. And they've created a head mask for the actress that has these additional eyes like a spider would, and so she's got like 2 human eyes but 6 other eyes that are just black. And just like her human eyes blink, we occasionally see the other eyes blink as well, which is nice. What I don't know is why they aren't all human eyes or all black eyes,
right?
But it's still it's nice makeup. What's bad about it is, like a lot of monster costumes, the prosthetics are so intense, including like fangs that she's got, that it interferes with her ability to act. So she cannot convey subtle emotions. She constantly sounds like she's got a mouthful of spit. And she's got to over-emote everything and be this over-the-top caricature of a villain.
Right. I was going to say that. Yeah, it's just there can be no subtlety in her performance because of the costume, and that's always a sign of a not a good costume, because it interferes with the actor.
Also, she knows way too much about Christmas and human customs. I mean, she like at one point is talking. She makes we find out in this scene or in this sequence that Donna's fiance has been manipulating her the whole time. He's on the side of the Rachnos. And the only way he could maintain contact with Donna to keep dosing her with the Huon particles was by agreeing to marry her. So this has all been a setup. Donna's dreams of marriage are shattered. And nevertheless, the Rachnos Empress makes them, as they're stuck in her web, makes them go through with a quasi-marriage ceremony saying, I do.
Right.
And it's like, this creature knows way too much about human society.
Yeah, she's apparently been, well, if you think about it, because of what we learned about why she's interested in Earth, she must have been observing Earth for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe that she's sort of become an expert on Earth in that fashion. There's a couple of things that come up in this sequence. There's this fun moment where they're riding segways through the tunnels under London. So that was kind of funny.
Comedically funny.
Yeah. The Doctor and Donna have a lot of fun with that. There's a line where the Doctor goes up this shaft and it finds out that it leads to the flood control stations on the Thames. And Donna says, "What? There's like a secret base hidden underneath a major London landmark?" And the Doctor's like, "Oh, apparently." So what was that joke based on? Was there a previous one?
There have been. I'm not remembering specifically. I can think of later ones, like the Tower of London has its secret unit base under it, and once the Torchwood series starts, Torchwood is under a monument or a famous place in Wales. Oh, Canary Wharf.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Torchwood itself being in Canary Wharf.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. I guess that's probably the most immediate reference.
Yeah. Well, and then you get in Rose where the Autons were based out of underneath the eye. The giant
the London Eye.
London.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
So there have been several recent ones.
So are the Rachnos new to this episode?
Yes.
Is this that we haven't seen them at all in Classic Who?
I have not seen them before.
I came across a fun little tidbit. It's not really important, but it's a little bit of trivia. The actress who plays the Empress of the Rachnos, her name is Sarah Parrish. In 2006, when they filmed this, was in a movie with Peter Capaldi called After Sun, which is kind of a funny little. I mean, maybe the acting community in Britain is not that large, and so it's not as.
It's not.
Yeah, so it's whatever. But I just thought it was a funny thing to come across. So Lance is a giant horseless patoot. I mean, he is the biggest jerk ever, and apparently he did this to see the universe that the Rachnos promised him he would get to see, which is kind of funny when you think about it, because he would be essentially a companion. You know, he's sort of like the evil version of companions. And so I just thought that was a funny juxtaposition there. So the Doctor and Donna, in this lair, there's this giant borehole that goes to it goes to the center of the Earth. Apparently avoids all of the magma that makes up 90% of the Earth.
Yeah. Just like we saw in the Satan Pit.
Exactly.
Recently.
Well, maybe that wasn't an active planet, but yes, it is. But yeah, that was yet another borehole that goes to the center of a planet.
With something bad at the bottom of it.
Right. And yet another, maybe a deep-seated sociological phenomenon or psychological phenomenon for people.
And that's fine, but that was like 3 episodes ago.
Exactly. So they go back to the beginning of time, essentially to the beginning of the solar system, and they discover that the Earth was created by the Rachnos flying a ship into our solar system, and then all of the dust and rocks being the catalyst that creates the Earth. So let me get this straight. So we have an Earth. The Earth was created by the Rachnos. The moon is a giant dragon's egg. Is there anything about humanity's home that is natural?
Well, I think the implication is the Earth would have formed anyway, but the Rachnos catalyzed it by having a massive object that then the other things gathered around.
Okay.
The other planetesimals, gravitationally were drawn to it to form the Earth. And that's an interesting idea. It also explains why they've got to burrow down to the center of the Earth to get the baby Rachnos, embryos that are down there that are hatching. And the reason, by the way, the Rachnos did all this billions of years ago when Huon energy was still in use is that they were hiding out from an alliance of races that were exterminating them.
Right, including apparently Gallifreyans, the Time Lords.
So that explains why they're all down there. And the Queen wants to relaunch the Rachnos Empire. and so she needs the Huon energy for reasons to enable the baby Rachnos to climb up and flourish. It's
like a jump start, jump starting your car. That's kind of the way I kind of got it. It's like jump starting the ship so that they could be revitalized and come up, I guess.
So the Doctor uses the Huon energy. So in the beginning of the episode, Donna, this magnetized Huon energy is drawn through space to the TARDIS. She's transmatted to the TARDIS, and so he says, when they're in the presence of the Empress and they're about to be shot, that works in reverse. So he brings the TARDIS to Donna around her. And that's how they escape
Projector.
To go back. Yeah, and they go back in 4.5 billion years. And then the Queen, the Empress, brings the TARDIS back to that location. But the Doctor subverts her by using the tribophysical waveform macrokinetic extrapolator.
Ooh.
From Boomtown.
Glad he had one of those.
Yes, to jump sideways into the corridor. Apparently, he uses this a couple times in the next couple seasons. I thought it was interesting. There's a TARDIS coral growing on it. What is that? What is that a Classic Who thing?
No, it's New Who. TARDIS was never seen, or coral was never seen in the TARDIS until New Who, when they introduced Christopher Eccleston's Doctor. All of a sudden we had these big coral-like structures in the console room.
Okay.
And they are eventually going to explain, the Doctor's already mentioned that TARDISes are grown.
Yeah.
And eventually they're going to reveal they're grown from TARDIS coral.
Okay. I think I remember that now. So we get the web ship is descending from space. Of course, it looks like a Christmas star, and people. And so yet another Christmas is ruined by a spaceship blasting London. I mean, people are going to stop celebrating Christmas in London at some point, which actually I think happens.
They're going to go for a holiday.
Yes,
right. London is England's Tokyo in terms of giant thing attacks.
Exactly. Actually, later on we do get that where people. We have a Christmas special. The Doctor in the Wardrobe, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe ripoff, where people get out of London for Christmas because of all the Christmas problems. Lance gets his poetic end as he's dropped in to be food for the spiders. We find out that the Doctor's pockets are bigger on the inside. He is apparently wearing
which actually resonates with the way Tom. They never said this, and this is a neat retcon of it.
Yeah.
But Tom Baker would have amazing amounts of junk in his pockets that he would start pulling out.
Well, we saw that in Robot, where he was sitting there talking to the guy at the Scientific Research Society, and he's just pulling stuff out and pulling stuff out and pulling stuff out, and pass to the Mars Venus shuttle.
That didn't look weird to me. That was like my pockets most of the time, full of stuff. His solution is to drain the Thames into the 4,000 mile deep tunnel, which apparently empties the Thames. It drains it so fast that it doesn't refill from the ocean.
Well, it doesn't flow it flows to the ocean. So it empties it from its upstream sources incredibly fast. And obviously,
but
that
the ocean fill back? No,
it
maybe
might.
not.
Well, it might flow back in.
Yeah.
But it apparently happens really fast before any of that reflux can happen. And obviously, that amount of water would not fill a 4,000 mile deep chasm, but I would assume that if it all goes down in a big bunch, it'll be like a zone of water that just smashes down and kills all of the innocent, sentient Rachnos children.
The babies.
That's what the Doctor just did.
Yes. That's a disturbing way. He exterminates the Rachnos. This is what the Doctor does here.
This is an act of both infanticide and genocide,
and he has no regrets. Like, in fact, he sort of has this angry look that scares Donna. That comes up later. This sort of intensity about it. It's another one of those moments where we really get the sense of the alienness of the Doctor. He seems so human most of the time, but there are times like this where we're reminded he is not a human being. He is a Time Lord. He's not a Martian either. Those look different. Yes, she keeps calling him a Martian through this episode. He is a Time Lord.
I don't see no green scales on him. He's not a Martian.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Also, this is apparently the first mention of Gallifrey by name in New Who in this episode.
Okay.
So we get that, and that's where the Empress freaks out when she hears that, because she didn't know that he was Time Lord.
Its original first mention was in the time of John Pertwee, the third Doctor.
Right.
And the joke was, after they finally named the home of the Time Lords, was that nobody knew the Doctor was from Ireland.
Good Gallifrey, yes. So I was going to say, though, the hole, you could actually figure out the volume of a 4,000 deep hole. I mean, you could guesstimate how wide that was, and it's a cylinder, and apparently it's not really hot in the middle from all the magma. So anyway, suspension disbelief. We'll just move on from that. The British government, the British military mobilizes. They're ready at the ready. They have tanks at the ready on Christmas Day to just in case there's a space invasion. And the tanks take out the Christmas Star ship on the orders of Mr. Saxon.
Yeah,
this is our first mention of Harold Saxon in passing, who is apparently already Prime Minister.
I think he may have been mentioned once before, but it was another one of these very brief things. This is more prominent,
right? We get the sense that this is the person in charge. And then we have that scene at the end where
also, by the way, it's nice to see human weapons being effective against an alien technology.
Right. Yes, you shoot a nice how big is it? 105 millimeter shell at a alien spaceship. It's going to do some damage. Although they apparently were missing a lot of them. I don't know where all those tank shells were landing, but they were.
Yeah, where were you guys in range finding school?
Exactly. I hate to be the people around that neighborhood where those were missing. So we have this final scene, which is echoed again. I got to point out again at the end of Donna's time with the Doctor at the end of her season. This scene where standing outside the house and saying goodbye. She invites him in for Christmas dinner, and he says, "I'm just going to go park the TARDIS." And she realizes, she knows he's running off. He's running off. He invites her to go, and she says no, which is kind of surprising, because he scares her, and that's an interesting moment. It's probably very sensible at this point, especially.
Yeah.
And the Doctor,
he given the number of sentient creatures he just killed and doesn't care. She's dead right, saying you need someone to stop you. Right.
In fact, she says that you need someone to stop you sometimes. And we see that later on, we'll see that with Peter Capaldi. After the 12th Doctor's regeneration, he refers to Clara as the person who cares for him. Like she's my carer. She's the one who cares about others and stops them from doing things. So is it true? Does the Doctor need companions to keep him on the path?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I guess we see evidence of that whenever he's alone, traveling alone. Things do go awry for him.
They really emphasized that in the Matt Smith era. This idea that he needed someone with, because that was part of the whole issue with Clara.
Right.
He kept saying that he'd go travel off on his own without her.
That's right. And in fact, when he loses Amy and Rory, the Paternoster gang really kind of points out this whole necessity of the Doctor needing somebody, a companion. Yeah. Was it always like this? Was the Doctor always sort of? I mean, he always had companions, but was it a need?
They didn't explore the need aspect of it in Classic Who, really. I mean, he's always had them, and from that we could infer that he wanted them.
Yeah.
But the idea that he would turn self-destructive or become a danger to himself and others without companions wasn't something they went into.
Okay, interesting. I mean, we could say that's sort of the evolution.
I'm just trying to think in Classic Who, was there ever really a time when the Doctor didn't have companions?
Very briefly, like when he would be returned, for example, after Sarah Jane Smith, he briefly didn't have a companion during his visit to Gallifrey, which was what prompted Sarah Jane's departure. Was he got a summons to Gallifrey, and similarly, there was a period very briefly, where after he was forced to regenerate from being the second Doctor into John Pertwee's Doctor, he didn't have a companion initially. But at most it was like a companion left at one episode, and the next episode he would have a new companion or a couple episodes. At least by the next, no more than a gap of one story.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you had like the episodes of the Deadly Assassin, but on Gallifrey before he got Leela as a companion in the Face of Evil. There was, though, at that very point, a question in Tom Baker's mind of, did you need a companion? And he actually wanted to have no companion and just go along and talk to himself for exposition. And he even floated the idea of having a talking cabbage as a companion. But they said, no, we want a companion as an audience surrogate, so you're getting one. Yeah. And she's going to be clad in a really cool little leather outfit as a warrior woman.
Was that Leela?
That was Leela.
Okay.
They wanted the next companion to have what they referred to as dad appeal.
I have no idea what that means. That's okay. I'm looking forward to watching those, though, to see what it means.
I'm sure.
Yep. So I guess, so is there anything else you want to say about this episode? I mean, I have to say, I apart from the recycling of the RoboForm Santas, I really enjoyed this because of that connection between Donna and the Doctor and how that eventually, everyone apparently saw it and they said, well, when we can get her, let's bring her in or whatever, or that became the catalyst for that. But anything left to say?
Two comments I have. One is, the flip side of comedy is tragedy, and comedic characters have the capacity to be really effectively sad. You look at Charlie Chaplin's The Little Tramp is both hilarious and sad. And we see the same thing here with Donna, because even though she functions primarily as a comedic character, it's genuinely sad when she realizes her fiancé has betrayed her and we see her crying.
Right.
So I liked that. That was effective emotional acting. It was really not effective emotional acting when the Spider Queen at the end, as her babies are being killed, is writhing around with an open mouth shrieking. So it just goes on for too long, and even though it's understandable she would have a bad reaction to that, this just is poorly realized on screen.
It's like the Wicked Witch of the West. What a world! What a world!
Yeah. Only worse.
Yes. Father Cory, any last thoughts on this episode, or?
Again, just that last scene with Donna where she's so clear on who the Doctor is and just that. I thought that was probably one of the most effective scenes in the entire series. That for a person so thick, she really caught who he was.
Yeah, and that's part of the thing with Donna. She's really not thick. She's just coming from a social class and an educational background that causes her to be underestimated.
Well,
and there is kind of the ongoing joke about how she misses everything.
Right. Well, this
giant spaceship in the sky. I was in Spain, or no, where was it? I was hungover. I was hungover. Cybermen. I was in Spain. There were Cybermen in Spain.
Didn't see the news. Scuba diving.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing, is it sort of plays off this idea of a certain class of social class of people who kind of just go through life not really paying attention to the world beyond their very small circle, and I think that's kind of the idea that Donna is in. And as we see her,
she's like a grown-up version of Rose almost. She's lower class and stuff. She's kind of a contemporary of Jackie, and they even both have kind of that cougar aspect. Yeah,
there's a little bit there. Yeah, whereas again, Martha Jones comes from actually an upper class sort of. She's a doctor. That's where we're going to next. So there's that contrast there. that we're going to see. So, and that's where we're going next. We got some previews of what's coming up for Martha Jones. There's some really effective episodes in the coming season. A few. We're going to see Mark Gatiss acting coming up in the next couple episodes. So, so it'll be we'll be getting into that soon, and that'll be fun to explore those. So I think that's it from us. Folks, if you could, again, we've kind of said this before. If you've enjoyed Secrets of Doctor Who, if you've enjoyed this episode, please share it. Write a tweet about it, and link to the page on sqpn.com or on
Facebook,
share it on Facebook. Leave a comment on Facebook or on reply to on Twitter. If you could write us a review on iTunes or any of those things, share it with people who like Doctor Who and might enjoy our discussion of it, because that's why we do this. We want to share our insights and with folks and create a conversation. Frankly, we'd like to hear from you.
Let us know what you think about what we have to say. Do you think we're right on? Do you think we're totally off base? Let us know.
Or if you've got an insight that we haven't had, we'd love to hear it. So visit sqpn.com or the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, and you can leave feedback there on the particular episode. You could also send us an email to doctorwho@sqpn.com. You can find links to all of our personal social media and websites on our show notes on sqpn.com. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the 5th Doctor story, 4 to Doomsday. Until then, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me in sharing the Secrets of Doctor Who.
Oh, thank you, Dom.
Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Thanks, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening. And remember, this time it's personnel.
When will I see you again?
Soon, I expect. Or later. One of those.